Hey everyone, it is Dawn. I want to just talk briefly about a couple of topics, codes, combinations, working with the quantum field, and healing as the basis and the foundation for radiant expansion. These are very simple concepts, so if it's not for you, go ahead and switch off. But I wanted to share where this all started for me. I've heard as in heard through the field, certain things people say, and directly, actually, a few times in recent years, like, oh, you've changed. I'm like, no, I haven't changed at all. Like, literally, this is who I've always been. Maybe I look slightly different. I personally believe that's because I stopped trying to not look weird. But anyway, whatever. However, I wanted to, like, what the point is here is that when people say that, what they're responding to is that they think somehow like, what's the magic? And there's no magic. It was a lot of work, in terms of more the consistent experience, I guess, of and I suppose there's some level of emotional mastery, or I don't think I have any mind mastery really, but I have learned from my mistakes. So what I want to talk about, though, is there's this interesting thing that I see happening. So some people, when they see this, especially people who have been unwilling to be on a spiritual or healing path at all, because they're terrified, as was I. They hear, some of the things I'm saying and immediately reject them because there is a level of deep, profound spiritual connection to both the beyond, the quantum field, and what is right here inside, which is also a quantum field. And that makes people uncomfortable. And then there's also this sense that the people who, like, often I get this from people who are quite awake and, at various junctures on their own healing journey or path, but it's sort of like, almost like I'm making it too simple. I shouldn't talk about it this way because it sounds too simple, and it's not simple. You have to, like, master, like, some kind of secret knowledge. And while I love secret knowledge and mystery, I do not believe that's true. I believe that love is the foundation of creation, and that it is a healing power, and that any of us can bring that love to ourselves by seeing ourselves as light and life and love, and allowing that to be the place from which we operate, allowing that to be the still center point, to believe that life is working in our favor and all of those other things. But I wanted to just make this video, actually, because I was thinking about, okay, where did this really start? I was thinking about my kind of healing journey, and it started when I was a very young child, like really young. I actually believe it really started in the crib, which I write about an experience I had in my book, Journey to Sacred Wholeness, which it was something I wrote 25 years ago. But there is a scene there, and it was very spiritual in nature, but it was real for me. And I believe that I came to somehow live this journey of fragmentation, both in terms of my soul fragments that had been lost through time, I believe, and also the experiences that I went through in this life. Some of them, quite traumatic, other ones just normal heartbreaks and the things that we go through. Let me take these off because they're glaring. They're bothering me. I don't need them. So I wrote this one poem way back in 2004, which was another, I would say it was really 2007, the first time I started sincerely opening myself to, like, I had the faith piece all along, and connection to the divine was always here for me. And I thought, what, for everybody, but I see now that's not the case. But what I didn't have until around 2006-07, somewhere around there, was an intentional path of healing. Well, that's not true, actually. I did back in the 90s, but that was more like healing on a specific thing, right? As normal. Relationship issues, led me to therapy, which then opened up like, what I had denied and suppressed, and didn't, or even when I hadn't suppressed it, when I knew well about it, I was resistant, which most of us are on the healing journey. So there was that healing that happened, but that is good, and it is something that we all need to embrace on our journey. But there's a deeper, more profound kind of healing where you truly open your heart and soul to all and love it all, no matter how broken it looks. And that's what I wanted to share in this video. Again, I know it's kind of basic, so if it's not for you, click off. But I wrote a poem back in 2004 that was the first my reaching toward this deeper sort of healing. It was very, focused on my childhood experiences. But I want to read it to you because I actually called it a combination to unlock myself. Actually, initially it was called like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It was like every 3 years, because weirdly, every 3 years there was like a very traumatic event, right up until at least my 30s. So I want to read the poem. Let me read the poem first, and then I come back and say a few things, okay? And I'll link to the original recording of actually, it wasn't the original. It was a recording I made in like 2016 maybe, but I'll link to that one as well if you want to see it, and have a different take. But here's the poem, a combination to unlock myself. I am terror-stricken in 3 fading freeze frames from the Kmart photo booth. I will put these back on. I am terror-stricken in 3 fading freeze frames from the Kmart photo booth. Wide-eyed desperation and fear are written in deep shadow, creasing 3-year-old cheeks. It's there in stark black and white, what he did to me and how my world had gone gray before New Year's Day. I am 6 on the one hand and half a dozen on the other, laughing myself silly in this one and all bottled rage in that one. Here the Floridian Bay where stingrays swam, and there the neighbor's treehouse I jumped from, that high haven once, daring God not to take me back. He didn't want me yet, and I saw 7. I am the Indian princess, hair and braids dressed in a fabric of dancing color, woven threads that sing in unison, harmonic tones of grace. A rare smile, peace-filled, lightens a face that has known but 9 young years, yet carries the storied wisdom passed through the generations. I am 12 tribes returning, recognizing my beginning and my end lies in the ever-living one. It is the 12th day of the 12th month in my 12th year of life, and I go down into the waters, rising up in newness of life, aware already of my task. I set out on bold journey, adventure of faith. I am 16 candles without a party. Grandma, my one sure thing, is gone, and I might as well have been living on the moon or with the little green men she believed in. This should be the happiest of times, but one shivers looking at the desolate desert behind green meadow eyes moist with a troubling truth. I am 22 reasons to say no, and one obstinate I do. I choose to create a dream that doesn't exist, determined to become a master of fate and a mistress to none. I dismiss my partner's partial participation and say, I can handle it. I'll do it all on my own. And soon, so soon, I am all alone. I am 30, divorced, beginning again with a child of 2 and a heart ready to believe in miracles. Here they have begun, and I shine, bathed in the glow of a golden gleam and promise of things to come. My heart beats wildly to see me there, unaware, oblivious to what danger awaits. I am 33, and I have lost more than I lost before. 2 days before Christmas, and I have been summarily dismissed from the work that was the fulfillment of a call, from the lives of people I have loved, still love, from everything I know and have come to trust. I am 39, standing on the edge of 40, living nobody's dream, just trying to keep my head above water, refusing to drown in sorrows that have been, hating this thorn in the flesh that tears at my mind and spills out in swinging moods. Here I am, reaching for real joy. So when I wrote that poem, in 2004, actually it was at the tail end of what I call my 3 years of darkness, which began with an experience I had around 9/11 in 2001. and I was quite depressed and honestly wanted to die, and didn't speak for some of that time, and it was very dark. And there were also a lot of I didn't understand them at the time, and I wouldn't have told anybody except the one person who was my partner. But there were a lot of very, very dark, odd spiritual attacks. There were also, I know now, actual in the physical things happening against me, but I didn't see that then at all. And the darkness, though, in terms of spiritual, was great. So I wrote this at the very end of that. And I remember what happened was literally, to me, a moment that was a miracle. I had walked into my kitchen one day, took my son to school, and was alone in the house. And I walked to the kitchen, opened the back door, trying to hold on to life like every day. And there was a red cardinal. Didn't necessarily associate it with anybody in particular at the time, but I think I know now who it was. But in any case, there was a cardinal. Cardinals are all red, aren't they? Well, no. Anyway, I saw the cardinal, and suddenly this, I had, my deepest wounding at that point had to do with being excised from communities, which is odd because I'm quite an introvert and a free spirit who stands on my own a lot. But somehow that had really affected me, in particular, being, kicked out of my faith community, my church at that time. And I'd come from my family was raised Baptist. It wasn't necessarily that I accepted all of the doctrines that were a part of that faith, but I had my faith in Jesus and Yeshua was absolutely strong. And I had gone ahead, and I actually had a master's degree from a seminary where my husband and I both graduated from. And but I had not, I'd been away from the church since 1999, so however many years that was. And then so much had changed with all of these things that were happening that were clearly spiritual. And every time I was connected to my intuition, which was really difficult back in those days, but every time I could, I saw, and I was reassured from beyond that, yes, this was intentional. It was okay. I was supported. And I believed that deep down somewhere, but my life was really difficult. And I saw this cardinal, and I just decided, there was a band I liked back then called Third Day, and they had done a version of the hymn. I believe it's Baptist, but the hymn "Blessed Assurance." Not endorsing all the theology in that or anything, but I loved the band Third Day, and had been to see them in concert a few times, and I just looked at the cardinal, and I just decided I'm gonna make myself sing that song. And it was like crazy, right? It was like that was the most daring thing I could do in that moment. So why I'm sharing this with you is because you're awakening to the fullness of who you are, to the fact that you are light and life and love, can begin in such a very dark place. And it can begin with just a random moment or a sequence of events. And there are many awakenings. It's not like I said, I kind of was always awake in one sense, but healing, it was like, and I see healing and awakening not as the same thing, but as often interwoven. That's why I talk about the journey back to sacred wholeness, back to our original state of sacred wholeness. That's what I believe anyway. And the journey to soulful transformation, which is more of the typical way people talk about awakening in terms of a realization of what reality really is, and a rise into the realm of radiance, as I like to say. But the healing can begin, actually both of those journeys can begin in a very subtle way. So I think it's important just to be gentle with yourself at any stage. Like, we're always on this journey, right? We're always going through those two simultaneous journeys. And I wanted to share the poem because I wrote the poem. So I stood there in the kitchen. I did sing the song. I was like, I could barely make it through. Nobody else, necessarily, I hope, heard me because I'm not the best singer, but I do love to. I love to sing, and so I sang it and I let myself feel it. And for me, it was connected to a lot of things. It was connected to the breach that had happened for me in my personal life with the communities. It was connected to the breach in humanity's trajectory that had happened, that I saw anyway, that had happened with 9/11. It was connected to individuals that I had lost, and some of whom I still very much loved at that point. It was also connected to this ancient knowing. I don't know how else to put it. Like this part of me that I had not fully acknowledged and would not accept because I was terrified of doing so. I didn't even have words for it then. I would now characterize that as, my awareness that I was not from this reality. I was not of the earth. And also, and I am, obviously, I'm here, I'm human. I was born. And yet there was something larger, right? And it was also connected to the story of my soul. And perhaps that was the most sacred to me, that and all these things were, keep in mind too, like, I don't know, if you don't know me, this won't make sense, but all of this stuff that had been just like appeared inside of me in 1999. Sorry, right after, so all the thunderclap moments, the three devastating events with my job, the church, and a particular individual in my life all happened in 96. 96 through 98. In 99, my greatest teacher in this life, who I saw as my mentor, passed away very young. And in 2001, a few years later, there was 9/11, then this period of depression. And so here I was, and I knew since 1999, when all these kind of things just like dropped into me. One day, I literally just woke up and I was like, I had all these words tumbling around in me that weren't like, they're not like in scripture or things that were written before. They were just like a complete message. And it was shown to me by, I don't know who it was, but an angel of some sort that was like, it's a message in a bottle for the world, share it. And I couldn't, I was terrified of it because I kind of knew it was connected to this larger soul story that lived in me. And I was aware of that, but it felt too close and it felt too threatening, and I didn't think I would survive it. And so honestly, in my mind at that time, it was like, I can't do that because I won't survive it and my child needs me. Like that literally is what I was thinking. And what I want to say to you here is that's okay. If you're in that kind of situation and you find yourself like really in the struggle of it, then be with the struggle of it. Because ultimately, that's what brought me to write this poem. One day I was like, okay, I'm just going to write this in my journal. I'm not going to speak it, but I need, and so I said a prayer. So this was, it was either shortly after or shortly before the singing in the kitchen. And I sat down and I said a prayer and said, God, and in my case, I believe very much and follow Yeshua. And so I was asking him to show me how to find the codes or the combination that would help me unravel whatever this was, this healing that I clearly needed. And I was seeking help and not receiving it for a variety of reasons. But in some cases, people just weren't able to give me the kind of healing that I needed. And in other cases, there were other things at play, unfortunately. But so I was desperate. I was also desperate for the darkness to stop. And so I prayed, and somehow got the nudge to write this poem and like write about the combination, write it. So I wrote the poem and, those random numbers that came out in the poem. And then I journaled more about it over the coming weeks. I wrote down all the things that had happened that I knew, some of which I had never told a single soul and didn't plan to. Not even the one that had supported me in my healing journey earlier. There are things I hadn't spoken of there. And so I wrote them all down. And I also had, the other thing I had, I mean, I look back and I think, man, I should have included it a little sooner, because the other thing I had was what came on my birthday, or what I think is my birthday, January 15th, 1997. So right after the rejection from the communities and the loss of all of those things, I had been given again by angels, in this case Metatron and Michael, although I didn't know Metatron's name back then. Come back, here we go. But in any case, the 7 wonders of the soul that I've talked about before: faith, hope, love, healing, growth, passion, beauty. And those, as they became, right at that moment when I was given them, they became my principles, my life principles that I always came back to, and that were my anchor. And I had that. And so I had that, and I had this list of things that had happened and healing. And that's where it starts. That's where it starts, just with a simple acknowledgement and awareness and the willingness to love, to bring love to those places within you that are hurting, that are broken, that feel hopeless, that feel overwhelming, that feel like if you dare to look at them, you're going to be so lost you will not be able to keep your head above water. So I guess I want to encourage you to use that process or a similar process and get the support you need, and don't give up trying until you do. And so that's the part I think I wanted to say about the healing combination. At the same time, and I was lucky, I suppose, because I was always aware of this. But at the time, it was overwhelming to me. But we also all of us, every single person, I believe every single form of life, anything that's organic, that's not, manufactured or created, we all have this access to the higher codes, these codes that are like literally creating our reality. I don't care if you see it as what is it called? I'm totally blanking on the name. What's the word? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Simulation. If you think it's a simulation, or if you think it's the opposite, if you think God created the world, or if you think it was a big bang that was simply a scientific process, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All the same, there are, in the field, the quantum field, there are codes that can find you the more and more you tune and fine tune to the energy within you, because you're designed as a sustainable system meant for flourishing in life. It's just a matter of reconnecting to the true streams of soul within you, which, to simplify it, I see as light and life and love. But for each of us, in addition, there's a unique flavor, our soul song, our soul signature that we're meant to share. So the more, as you are on your healing journey, the more that you can tap into those things and follow the flow of love, because love will lead you to what you're passionate about, who you're passionate about, why you're passionate about it. And if you'll just trust that enough to give yourself the space to be in that energy, you'll begin naturally to crack the code, or be given, you'll attract the codes, because you are like an egg, okay? We're all like an egg. And in some sense, we have to crack the outer shell of the egg in order to, be born. Like, think of the little chickie in there. But the chick too is an egg, okay? Like, we are, after we've cracked and done the healing, or even if we haven't, there's still another layer, right? Another egg. And so that's where I see that more as the spiritual, ethereal, I guess you could call it, but the core essence, let's just say that. And there's something about that shape that is sacred. And when I came to that point, so this was a few years later, maybe for me around the time I fully embarked on a path of like complete, utter reinvention, which was 2010, 2011. And 2011 is when I finally, because the egg had been cracked, because I had done that bit of healing, I finally was able to begin to share this thing that had been planted inside me, the Seeds for Life, which is the book Cultivating Essence from the Matrix of Soul. Interestingly, still at the time, and there are at least 3 people that I can think of that who would know this, because all 3 of them asked me this question, like once or twice in the context of like a coaching or community, and the other time as a friend. And all 3 occasions I totally freaked out. I'm sure they'll remember, but they asked me like, well, what is this Matrix of Soul? And I didn't know. I swear to you, I'm like, I don't know. And I was like a deer in the headlights, like panicking, like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know. They told me to name it that. But my point here is that those codes, right? Because I was beginning to, nurture not only through my creativity, which I kind of had been doing all along since 99, but also through like trying to, as much as I could at that time, and it was not much, it wasn't, but as much as I could to grab a hold, not in a clutchy way, but to refine, to take that pure stream that I knew was within me and to live from that, or to at the very least bring it love. And because I was doing that, I feel that there was more and more support and energy coming to me, to that egg, that essence that I was, and it was beginning to circulate more cleanly, because the toxicity could not survive in the presence of the light and the life and the love. The other thing that for me was really profound in terms of this kind of journey and accessing the more, well, it wasn't even that I was accessing anything. Actually, it was allowing myself to be kind of suspended in a field that was beyond my knowing. Being comfortable with the not knowing so that I could be fully me and trust life and trust, in my case, God, and trust the process, just keep showing up and keep showing up. And I fell down so many times in a variety of ways. But something in me by that point, because of the support that I felt that was coming in these sometimes magical ways, but often in very ordinary moments, like the redbird, like the cardinal I saw that day, things like that. And they kept me believing. And as I became more stable in the positive flow within me and felt it, and was not afraid to feel it, and then eventually to share it, more and more there was created an inner stability. Now, what's interesting to me when I look at my life, even let's just fast forward to 2011, when I was 100% all in. I'm dedicated, live or die. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give it everything I have to heal and to be fully me and to be love. And even though I felt like a failure at it for a long time, and still I have days that I do, I just did, I was devoted. I was devoted to that. And, there were a couple of things that were allowing me to be devoted, one being this painting right here. Which is just personal to me. And also this that's me. It's called Buffalo Mountain, or actually I think it's called something else, but it's me hiking up Buffalo Mountain with like this giant backpack on me. It's a picture that I took of my shadow in the ground, and it represents being on the way to me, the journey, and committing to the journey. And also this picture right here, which is about my healing journey and wholeness and the return to sacred wholeness. It's just a poster, but okay, let me get my thoughts back. Oh, yes. Because I was beginning to feel held, mostly from beyond, but also from within, and feeling this inner stability, I was actually okay, even though externally it was chaos. It was not stability in any understanding of the word, partly because of a lot of things, actually. I don't think I need to go into that. But my point is that the inner stability is what allows us to create in time the outer stability. And if we can define, or if we can evaluate our soul's journey based on the degree of inner stability that we are finding, I think that can be helpful. So I think the last thing I want to share is on this idea of codes. So the further along I went, there are several other markers on my personal journey, 2014 being a big one in terms of just really being owning the free spirit that I was, and being willing to acknowledge that I couldn't escape into that as a means to avoid all of the other truths. So that's the interesting thing, right? Sometimes we'll have one level of healing, and it's yes, at that point I had fully I'm a free spirit, and I'm going to follow my dreams and my intuition, and I did. 2014 to 2017 being the clearest example of that in my life, and maybe now too, in a way, different kind of way. But I then started realizing that there's always a deeper layer to uncover. And in terms of this idea of the quantum field and codes, I just glanced over, actually, it's something that is a good indicator of this. So in, I believe it was, well, I won't say what day, but it was a specific date that means something to me toward the latter part of the year. I made this little poster for myself, as I do every year. Usually I actually wait until January toward my birthday, but I did it early. And I was put some words that were going to be my theme for the year. It's one phrase, which I'll tell you was quantum quintessence. And then there are 3 little points that are the pyramid to me. And then I put the purpose of why I wanted that to be my life key for this year. And then I put ways I would know it was showing up on this little piece of paper. And then I found some cool little images to go with it. And I put it on my bulletin board. So I want to share that with you, because it wasn't a vision board. And it wasn't had I known, honest to God, had I known what it was going to open up, I would probably never, ever, ever have done it. Because I look at it now and I see all of the absolute madness that has occurred. That has been a disturbance in my field around me and inside of me, has caused quite a bit of turmoil and layers of healing that I never would have imagined could have been necessary. Both in terms of this life, in terms of the personal situations, but also in terms of the more spiritual journey. The being on the way, and but I asked for it. And I think that that's what we have to learn to do, is to trust when we are led to a new layer of growth, to just trust the unfolding of it. So that's something that I see quite clearly, and maybe at a later date I'll share the more specifics around the keywords that are right there on that piece of paper. But I said, hey, this is what I want this year, in my lightness and like feeling good the day I did it. And like, I was great. I was in my groove. I was creating, I was having fun. I was, feeling actually more stable than I felt in a while. I'm not thrilled about like where I'm feeling stable, but whatever, like, just make my life. And I knew that, I knew where the trajectory of where I wanted to go, or I thought I did anyway. And that's the point. We have to be okay with just knowing to the best of our ability what we think we know, and then go with where our intuition, which is really only the energy of love inside of you revealing more of itself. That is something that we have to just like follow again, like sort of on a daily basis, be devoted to it. And then when we see like, oh my gosh, like the moment I realized, I was like, oh, I wrote that down. Whoa, that was too big. Bad, Dawn. Like I wanted to chastise myself for writing down this, like quantum thing, like too much of a reach, right? Like play small. But no, that's not what we're meant to do. That's not who we're meant to be. Any of us, all of us are meant to come to life and live in full expression, to fully express who we are, whatever that is. And that looks different for all of us. So I think I'll end it there, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about this whole idea of codes in the quantum field, and how that has related, or how it's shown itself for me in my healing journey and in my spiritual journey, which are really kind of one and the same, and many are, there's a little overlap anyway, a lot of overlap, like waves. And, I'm quite sure that it's going to keep being an interesting ride for me, for all of us. And I just want to wish you a very beautiful weekend, and thanks for listening. Bye.